I don't know, have you ever heard of anything in the country called rabbit tobacco?
Uh-uh.
Well, it's a little, about an inch long, soft tissue-like thing, and it grows in the woods on a little bush, and people back there were smoking that. They'd roll it up in brown paper and smoke it. At least us kids would do that. So my older cousin, he and I went into the woods, and he showed me how to do that. And so that was my first cigarette. And of course, we'd go to a creek where we could swim, and we had one guy that I didn't like too well because he was trying to throw me in the water all the time. He was older. Of course, we had a tall pecan tree in back of the house, and my dad had put a cable up there and made us a swing. And you could sit in it or you could stand, and swing. And of course, one day I was standing in it swinging, and it was cable, and there was little broken pieces, and my feet slipped off, and I went down like that, holding onto that cable, cutting my hands. And of course that upset everybody. I don't know why. But anyway, up until I was almost 13, that's when my dad died, but we had worked on the farms all that time. I know one time he sent me, it was about 5 miles away to get a mule that we were going to use. And of course he instructed me on how to bring that mule back, walking, So I walked a while, and then I got tired, so I eased him up the side of the bank of the road, dirt roads, and got on him. And I rode him almost to the house, and then I got off. But I didn't let him know that I'd been on a mule. Of course, evidently people had ridden that mule before, And another situation is that my half-sister's husband, he owned several farms there. And he somehow ordered 6 oxen, they call them. Each one was supposed to weigh a ton, 2,000 pounds. They were all about the same size, and they were all the same color. And they'd hook them together, and they'd pull logs out of swamps and places around when they were logging, cutting timber. And of course, those oxen were up at our house, our place, and they got out and was running down the road, and I ran down on the bank. It was higher, I ran down and got in front of them and stopped.
Did that work?
Yeah, it worked. They were afraid of me, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't afraid of them because I was almost 12 years old then when that happened. Yeah, so, 6 2-ton oxen running past. Who'd be afraid?
Oh my goodness.
But anyway, like I said, we lived in the country there, and I learned to do things that normally kids wouldn't do unless they did live in the country, like to hunt and use weapons and stuff like that. And one morning, before the school bus came by, I took the shotgun and went down a hill into a little creek area and I saw a squirrel in a tall tree there. So I shot him with a shotgun, and he just stayed there on that limb. So I shot him 6 more times till I shot the limb off.
Well, that's one way, huh?
I brought him home to Dad. Yeah. I figured he'd be upset me using all that ammunition, but he didn't say anything to me about it.
And I guess you couldn't eat the squirrel because it was full of shot.
Yeah.
Not the left of them.
But back then, you ate squirrels and rabbits and things like that out in the country.
Huh.
So I do squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, and things like that.
You mentioned growing up on the farm. What was a typical day on the farm like for you?
Well, during school time, we rode a bus to school, of course. We'd get up and get ready and everything, go to school, but as soon as we got home in the afternoon, we'd work on the farm till almost dark. And so we'd do that. And
What were some of the chores on the farm?
oh, well, you had cows and hogs. You had to feed those, And of course we had like a garden and grew all kind of vegetables and things like that. Chickens, So you'd have to feed all those, That's some of the chores, be feeding those. And
Did you milk the cows too, or did your sisters do that?
well, I learned how, which was a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought I had to learn how to do everything that was to be done, I didn't know that I was going to have to start doing it. But anyway, so then my dad died when I wasn't quite 13 when he died. And my sister Mary, she more or less was the head of the household there because my mom was an invalid. She couldn't do anything. She had a nervous condition. So Mary kind of took care of us. And later, she got married, and me and my mom and my grandmom went to live with one of my mom's brothers. That was up on the farm. So we stayed there a while, and finally I decided that I didn't want to live under those conditions. So I walked about 16 miles, 16 miles, to a dairy farm. I must have been about 14 then, maybe almost 15. But I walked that distance to a dairy farm, and I asked this owner, who was an 84-year-old man, Mr. Gavin, asked him for a job. So he gave me a job and a house to move my mom and grandmom in.
Wow.
So we moved to there, and so I worked on the dairy farm. So during school seasons, I'd get up about 4 o'clock in the morning. We would milk cows and all, and I'd work to about 7, and then I live about a half mile from there. I'd go home and get ready to go to school, and then in the afternoon when we got off the school bus, I'd go and saddle up the horse and go out and round up the cattle that would be out in a certain area, and round them up and drive them in, and we would milk the dairy farm, the cows, and we had to use electric milking machines. So we'd milk the cows, and then we'd put everything away and get through about 7 in the evening, And then I'd go home and do any homework I had to do and get ready for school the next day. But then on the weekend, on Saturday, we would milk the cows and pasteurize the milk and all that, go through that whole procedure. And then there was work to do in the fields and on the farm. And one of them was to plow with a tractor. And I learned how to operate that thing real good. And so I would do that. I learned how to drive. You had an old truck, didn't have any fenders on the front, made a lot of noise, but we could haul hay in it. And my job was to drive that to the farm and back loaded with hay, you know. So I did the driving of the truck. I barely could reach the pedals. But anyway, I worked on that farm for maybe a year and a half or something. I don't recall just how long. But then I got a job in town on a general merchandise store. Like I say, they had grocery, market, meat market, clothing, like a cafeteria type place where you could eat. And anyway, there was about 6 different departments in there. So I worked there, and of course I could work in any of them. And the part I didn't like about it was at noon, when everybody was eating, they came there to eat. And that part I didn't care that much about. But other than that, it was okay. So I worked there till I was about 18 and a half. And a friend of mine that had been in the Army, his name was Bucky Bishop, double B's.
Yeah.
Anyway, him and I became friends, and he decided to re-enlist, and it told me, or talked me into enlisting. So him and I hitchhiked from Waynesboro to Laurel, which is 30 miles away, to the recruiting station in Laurel, and enlisted. He re-enlisted and I enlisted. So I went into the Army at that time.
When was that? What year?
That was 1950, June of 1950, when I enlisted. So I went to South Carolina. No, wait, I went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Let me back up. Initially, we went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and stayed there about 3 weeks, and then all of us, it was new enlistees, and went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to the 82nd Airborne Division for basic training. So I went there and went through basic training, and of course I had an injury on my right knee, so I didn't go to jump school. I went to, I took some jump school training, but I injured my knee, so I couldn't complete it. So I went to tank battalion, a new tank battalion that was organized there. And so I stayed there a year and a half. During that year and a half, I had been promoted to Sergeant E5. One morning, they called all sergeants in for a meeting, and the person in charge told us that they had to have 5 Sergeant E5s to go to Korea. And so I raised my hand first to go, and then my best friend, he decided to go too, and so anyway, there was 5 of us that volunteered to go to Korea. And of course, I had bought me a 1949 Ford, and from another soldier there. So I drove it home for 30 days, and then went to. I left it there, and then took a bus to go to Seattle, Washington, to be shipped out to Korea.
What was that like for you? I mean, growing up in Waynesboro, now you're on the other side of the world. What was that like for you?
Well, I adopted pretty quick to all situations, you know. If I was given a job, I would try to do it better than everybody else, you know. So at that time, I was, from time to time, I'd be teaching classes on weapons or tactics or something, army subjects. And so I had not turned 21 at the time. And myself and 2 of my friends went downtown and Seattle, I believe it, yeah, went downtown, and we went into a bar, and they wouldn't serve me because I wasn't old enough. I was going to drink a beer, probably be the first one. Anyway, they wouldn't serve, I wasn't old enough, so the other 2 decided they wasn't going to drink there either, you know. So anyway, we stayed there about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then we got on a ship, the Marine Lynx is the name of it. They loaded all us recruits, and not recruits, but new people aboard that ship one evening, late, before dark, and moved out for Korea. There was somebody singing, "So long it's been good to know you." That song was being sung, you know. But anyway, we stopped in Japan and got off there and went up on the army post there that they had. Refired our rifles there. Stayed about a day and a half, 2 days there. Then we loaded back up on the ship and went to Korea. So anyway, we got to Korea and we went to a replacement company, and then they assigned us to a unit. I was assigned to a unit, Heavy Tank Company, 7th Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. Me and my friend Cannon, we were both assigned there. He didn't like responsibility. He didn't like to be in charge of things, you know. So we were the same rank. We was promoted on the same orders, but his name started with a C and mine a B, and mine would be first. And so I told him I outranked him, and he believed me. But anyway, in Korea, the way they decided how long you would stay is how close you was to the front line. If you was on the front line, you'd get 4 points a month. You had to have 36 points to rotate. So that meant 9 months if you stayed on the front line. If you was back off the front line just a short distance, you'd get 3 points, and then further back is 2 points. Well, I was lucky that my unit had been back getting replacements and all that, and just getting ready to go back on the front line when I got there. And about 3 days after I arrived in my unit, we went to the front line. and I stayed there 9 months on the front line.
Mm.
We shifted from one location on the front line to the other, you know. And but I got 4 points a month, so in 9 months I was ready to go.
Mm.
But when we got there in Korea, as we were coming into the units there, a truck was going out, and they were leaving. They'd already served their time, and they were leaving, and they were singing "So Long It's Been Good to Know You,"
Mm.
you know, and that upset me.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, I didn't sing when we left. I knew how it would make those people feel, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, about 2 or 3 months before I rotated, I did get injured up in a mine, and I recovered real quick. I wouldn't let them evacuate me back anywhere. I stayed up there with the troops, you know. It wasn't life-threatening, so.
Can you tell us a little bit about that injury? What happened?
Well, we had moved on to this position there, and I was a platoon sergeant, and I had taken my tank and another tank up on the high hill. The engineers had cut the side of the mountain there, a road, like so you could drive a tank around and get up there.
Mm-hmm.
So I took those 2 tanks up there and the other tanks on the flank around there, you know. Well, we had on the tanks, there was a phone in the back, in a little box, metal box mounted to the tank, or made with the tank, where it had a phone there, but you had to have a landline hooked up to it. So I was getting all my tanks hooked up so we could communicate with each other by phone instead of, in case we couldn't by radio. And I asked for volunteers I volunteered to go with me to take we hooked the wire to the back of our tank, and then it was on a spool, and we were going to take it down to the hill to another tank. So my driver, Robert Green, he was the first one to volunteer to go with me. And so we were going down this hill, and we hit a mine, or a booby-trapped grenade or something, and it blew up. And he happened to be on the side that the mine was on, so he got hurt worse than I did. So anyway, it exploded, and of course we were both hit. And then some of the soldiers up on the hill there saw us, wanted to come down to get us. And of course, I was afraid they, might hit another mine, booby-trapped mine, because we just pushed the North Koreans off that hill, and they had it booby-trapped. Mm. So I was afraid they was going to, set off another one, so I wouldn't let them come down. So I got Green, put his arm around me and helped him to get back up to the tanks, and it's a safe position. So anyway, the medics and all treated me, and they thought I needed to go, go back, but I wasn't going to go back because I wanted to stay there with the troops, And besides, I didn't feel it was serious enough for me to be going back and everything. So anyway, I stayed up there, and
what kind of injury was it?
It was a booby-trapped, some kind of a mine that was hooked up, and it had a tripwire running so that it would you wouldn't have to step on it. You could set it off by hitting that trip wire.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it was.
So you had shrapnel?
Yeah, right. How were you affected? How did it hurt you?
Well, I got a few small pieces in here and pieces in my side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they wasn't big pieces. They was just small fragments and everything. Now, Green, he was a little bit more serious on one of his right leg. Was hurt worse, you know.
Hmm.
So anyway, at least he wasn't killed. Yeah.
So you saw some action being on the front line. There was,
All the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they was trying to knock out those tanks because, see, we were supporting the infantry. We were with infantry. And so we was right there to protect them from enemy tanks and so forth.
Hmm.
So I was on the front line the whole time. We'd shift from like one position. They'd need us. The regiment would need us further up the line there somewhere, and we'd shift there. We stayed as long as a month and a half in a location, and sometimes longer. And then we'd move at night, which was hard to do. You had to drive blackout, you know. Just little tiny lights on the back of each tank that so the tanks in the back could see it.
Huh.
And so that's the way we moved. And one position was well known over there, the Chorwan Reservoir. That was everybody there around up there knew where that was, you know. Just large reservoir water down here. And of course we went around and went up on the hill there. And that's where it happened.
Hmm. Yeah. After 9 months, what happened next?
Well, at 9 months, usually they would try about 2 weeks before that to pull you off the front line back to, you know, a more safe position.
Hmm.
And of course I wouldn't, I didn't agree to be pulled off the front line. I actually stayed up there to the day before I was leaving. And it was almost a mistake because we got heavy shelling that night, you know, on our position by the enemy. But anyway, we had a new sergeant there that wasn't, his name was Dayhoff, Sergeant Dayhoff. And Green embarrassed him kindly. He said, "What are you going to do when Sergeant Bodie leaves?" You know. He asked him what he was going to do. I wouldn't be there.
Yeah, take care of them all.
Yeah. So anyway, but the night before, I had to go back in order to leave. That we were shelled pretty heavy, and I thought for a minute, well, maybe I needed and should have went back yesterday. But anyway, of course, got a ship from Korea back to Japan, and of course, it stops in Japan. And we did some processing there, and then came back. So I came back by ship also. And of course, it took a lot longer by ship than it does by plane, you know. So anyway,
What was your next assignment once you came back to the States?
well, that was on my first enlistment. Then I went to, they sent me to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. And it was 2 months before my enlistment would be up. So I was sent there, and I just stayed there, you know, until it was time to be discharged. And I got my discharge, and of course, when I got there, though, initially, I took a month home, almost a month home, you know. And of course, when I did that, when I got home, when I got injured, I didn't know that they had notified my family. But two military officers, whatever, went to my house, Mom and my sister, and told them that I was wounded. And of course, they'd take it out in bad shape. They probably thought I was blown apart. But anyway, my two sisters didn't tell my mom about it, you know. And they hadn't heard from me either, because, you know, I'm not one to write a lot of letters, nothing. And so one day I showed up there.
But they were surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, so immediately, my boss that was working for before I left, he wanted me to come back to work there. And I didn't want to get inside. I just couldn't stay inside that much. I just didn't like that. But anyway, and I didn't want to do that kind of work anyway. And they had a glove factory up there. And of course, he had no position with the glove factory. But when I told him no, I didn't feel I was going to come back to work in the store anymore. It was just too restricted. And he said, well, how about the glove factory? And I said, well, I would try that one. He said, well, report over there Monday morning. And he notified those people that I'd be over there. So I was inside in that glove factory, and I'd been used to being out. I didn't stay there over 3 weeks probably. And I said, I don't want this job no more. And then I did go to work for another store that had a grocery and market. And I said, man, to myself, this is not for me either, you know. And the owner of that store said, look, I'm opening up another store next month. And I told him where it was, right over there. He said, I want you to manage it. I said, I appreciate it, but this is not for me. So I'd made up my mind then I was going to re-enlist. So this friend of mine, Bucky Bishop, he re-enlisted. And so him and I re-enlisted.
When was this? What year?
53.
53.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we re-enlisted, and I was shipped to South Carolina initially, but I kept my rank because I re-enlisted within 90 days. So I kept my rank of E6, Sergeant E6. And so I re-enlisted, and they wanted me to stay there in South Carolina and train trainees, but I said I re-enlisted for Fort Benning, Georgia. That's where I'm going. So, and I had bought me a new Oldsmobile, and so I said I'm going to Fort Benning. So I take off for Fort Benning, you know.
Now, did you choose Fort Benning? You wanted
Yeah.
that?
Well, I re-enlisted for Fort Benning specifically.
What was the attraction of Fort Benning?
It was close to home,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been here before. Like I say, I was in the 550th Tank Company. Let me see. I've got to get my thoughts together. Well, anyway, trying to figure out. Yeah, okay, all right. I hadn't been to Fort Benning before there, but it was closer to home. That's the reason I wanted to come here.
Mm-hmm.
So I re-enlisted from Fort Benning, and that's where I was assigned to the 550th Tank Company. It was a tank company that supported the infantry school in all their training, tanks and infantry training together. So I was with the tank company, and we did training with the infantry. So that's where I went.
Now, you're only about 22 years old at this time,
Yeah,
right?
I'm 22.
And you were an E6?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was one that instead of reading comic books like some of the young kids were doing, I was reading field manuals.
Mm.
I was teaching classes as a corporal, you know. And
Amazing.
anyway, I had to know more about my job than anybody else, and as much about all the other jobs. You know, I was crazy. But anyway, I came back. I was with the 550 Tank Company. And I stayed with it, and like I said, we supported the infantry school. You know, when the tanks and the infantry were going to train together, we'd do that. And we put on demonstrations too, out there at Harmony Church. It'd be a tank platoon and an infantry company. And the infantry company would move down this hill, and, you know, going to move to attack a hill out front. And the tanks would support them with machine gun fire and whatever. And would send tanks around over the flanks to be able to engage the enemy there. And then some of the tanks move along with the infantry.
Mm.
But anyway, that's just one of the things that we did for the school, you know. So I stayed with that company, and let's see, I forgot how long, but anyway, I believe I stayed till I re-enlisted. Yeah, I re-enlisted. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, I wanted to become an instructor at the infantry school, you know,
Mm.
and so you had to take the course, you know, the instructor training course. So I went through the instructor training course to be an instructor at the infantry school, and of course I passed that, and I got orders to go to Vietnam, no, to Germany. Got orders to go to Germany, and the full colonel that was in charge of the school, he talked to me and said that he could pull me off off those orders if I would stay there. And I said no. So I went ahead and it wasn't Germany, it was Hawaii. It was Hawaii I got orders for. Trying to get my assignments lined up.
Fine.
But anyway, it was Hawaii. The thing is, one morning, one of the guys that lived in the barracks on the main post, one of the instructors, he told me and another sergeant there said, "You two are on orders to go overseas." Said one of you is going to Alaska and one to Hawaii. And he didn't know which one was going where. I lucked out and I got Hawaii. So anyway, I already was married and had a Patty. She was about a month old when I got orders, maybe just a little over. When I got orders for Hawaii, so we loaded her and my wife and some stuff up in the back of that time. See, I'd already wrecked the Oldsmobile on my way home one time for a weekend in Selma, Alabama. I hit the back end of a huge tractor trailer. The trailer was parked on the edge of the road on a curve. And that Oldsmobile I had at the time, it had this electronic eye. When the oncoming lights, dim itself. And this car wouldn't dim its lights. So I was trying to watch the road, and I didn't see that it was a curve. And just as I passed that car, that truck was there in front of me. And I hit that truck. It wasn't no truck, it was just that big old trailer thing parked there. I hit that, and there was a house nearby, and I didn't know at the time, but the guy that lived in that house, and this was after midnight, lived there. He heard the crash and everything, and he went and got me. And the only thing I remember seeing that thing, and then I remember him trying to get me to lay down on the bed. He had come out there. What it did, it threw me off into a plowed field, and my eyes was open. And I mean, I had dirt in my eyes and everything, blood all over the place. So he was wanting me to put me on the bed, and I wouldn't get on the bed because I didn't want to get blood on his bed. And he wasn't going to worry about that. He made me get on the bed. So he called the air base there in Selma, and they sent an ambulance to get me, and I was taken to the hospital there in Selma. And they asked me there, said, who do you want notified? And I said, notify my unit, And I didn't tell them to notify my family or anything, I just notify my company. And I thought they took care of that, but anyway, the company commander, he insisted they report me AWOL. And we called him Mother J. He was the first sergeant. He treated all of us like it was kids there, tried to. But he was a real good guy. He said, look, he will not be AWOL. There's something wrong. They didn't notify him. It's a problem. They didn't notify my company. And of course, my sisters, they knew that I was supposed to be coming home after 4th of July weekend. And they couldn't get in touch with me, so both my sisters and their husbands, they checked with the police all the way along the route, and they found out there in Selma that there had been a wreck. And so that's how they located me, and then they all showed up there at the hospital, you know.
Wow.
Anyway, the car, what it did, it took the roof of the car and just took, I got pictures somewhere of it. But anyway,
I'll be able to splice those into this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I actually saw those pictures. I think it's a miracle that you lived.
yeah, I don't know where they are, but anyway, they had my insurance company had sent a notice to my home in Mississippi that my insurance was expired or something, and I'd gotten all about it, so there was no insurance on the car. So I lost the car. What I did, I bought a brand new little Plymouth when I got home. And then when I re-enlisted at Plymouth, I needed a bigger car, so I traded it in, got me the Oldsmobile. You know. And anyway, there was no insurance on it, so I just lost the car.
What was the make and model of the Oldsmobile?
Oh, it would have been a 50. That would have been a 53 or 54, something like that.
Oh, so it was pretty new.
It was brand new. I got it off the showcase.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was brand new at the time.
Is that a steel body?
Yeah.
Hmm.
But anyway, like I said, the insurance was canceled on it, so
Total loss.
total loss. Yeah.
Yeah. And you remember your sisters visiting you in the hospital?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can we take a step back for a minute? You said that you're married at this time. How did you meet your wife?
Well, down here in Columbus, just over the bridge on the left, there was a little drive-in restaurant there. And the oak tree is still there, by the way, the oak tree. This one weekend, me and a friend of mine came uptown, and I backed in there by that tree at drive-in, and we were going to got a sandwich and everything. And she was working there. She was staying at the time down here with her sister that lived here, her older sister. Her parents lived in Yonkers, New York. But she was staying down here with her older sister. But anyway, she was working there, and we were talking, and she mentioned something about, a dance. And they were having a dance on Saturday night out at Harmony Church, the military facility out there, And so I went out there to the dance, and her and her sister was there. And so I talked her into me taking her home. And so that's where we met.
Was it love at first sight? No, married shortly after that, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
Mm-hmm. And when was this? Month and year?
Let's see, it was, darn, I can't think of it was in 56.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was in 56.
Mm. What was it about her that caught your eye?
She was female.
And her flaming red hair and all this. things you said, no, said about redheads,
Yeah, she had pretty red hair. Anyway, yeah, we started dating right away. And I'm trying to think, what month? It was early '56. Maybe February of '56 or something like that. January, February of '56. But anyway, we got married, and then Patty came along, and then got orders for Hawaii, and let's see. Spam, potential spam, all this potential spam.
trying to find a picture.
Yeah. I was looking at one here, but this is not it. Well, anyway,
You're trying to, what?
Yeah,
Find
what?
those ones of Patty in Hawaii, or what were you looking for?
yeah, I'm looking for. Have you seen that one?
I have seen that one.
Lord. No, it's
That
not
is-
Patty in Hawaii, however.
That's a picture of my wife.
Well, if you find what you're looking for, show it to the camera. I have a
Okay.
feeling it's Patty with that straw hat that we were looking at before I left the other day.
That's it right there. That's Patty. In
Yeah,
Hawaii.
the Easter ones, yeah. That wasn't the straw hat one, but that's still, all those are really cute.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's my favorite picture right there.
Ah, let's see. Tell me about that.
That picture?
Yes.
Where it's taken in that dress, and where, I know it's Ola Mills, but
I'm trying to remember where it was taken.
well, that looks like one of those Ola Mills pictures, but I think she wore that dress to one of the dances. That's probably maybe that one that's back there on that wall.
Hmm.
Mr. Bodie, I don't want to,
What is-
let's see. Yeah, I see that here. Okay.
You see it?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Showed up on the camera good.
Yeah. If we could take a step back for a minute, tell me about those early years when you and Murtis met, and so Patty comes along, and here you are in Hawaii. Tell us about those years,
Well,
like 1957, 58, 59.
yeah. Well, I was in a tank battalion over there, at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, And of course, once a year we'd go to the Big Island for firing the weapons and everything. But first, when we got there, we got an apartment in Honolulu. It was a house, and there was an upstairs and downstairs apartment. So we moved into the downstairs apartment. It was a little bit bigger than the upstairs. And we moved in there, and of course I'd drive up to Schofield Barracks every day and back. But anyway, we moved in there, and later on, this couple with a 5-year-old son, a 6-year-old son came, and he was assigned to my unit. Guessford, George Guessford was his name. And they needed a place to stay, so me and my wife, we decided we would go ahead and move upstairs. It was open, and let them move downstairs because they had the 6-year-old boy. And of course, we had Patty. She was about, there like that. And so we let them move in down there. But every weekend, just about every weekend, we was at the beach, somewhere. One of the beaches on Oahu, either Waikiki Beach or beaches up around the point somewhere.
Yeah.
But
very nice assignment. How about Patty? What do you remember about when Patty was born?
Well, she was born out here at Fort Benning, in the hospital out at Fort Benning. And I was home at the time. I'd come home for something, but anyway, she was born there, and we lived in a apartment in a house. 2 elderly women had this house down here in Columbus, and they lived upstairs for some reason, and we got the downstairs apartment, downstairs for our apartment at the time. And so when Patty, right after she was born, we moved to a different place out on South Lumpkin Road, and so we lived there. And like I say, I got orders for overseas, and I wouldn't turn it down. I could have stayed, there at Fort Benning. So, like I said, we packed up. I had that Buick, I reckon Oldsmobile, and I think about a Buick, nice looking Buick, and we packed up and had our stuff shipped, and we drove to Mississippi and spent some time there. And Judy wasn't here then.
A few years later.
Anything, we packed up everything, and we had enough stuff in the back seat of the car, had it packed up, where we could put a thing for Patty to sleep in, and she'd be up almost, the top, like a big basket with a pillow in it or something. Anyway, so we stayed there in Mississippi there for, like I say, a while, and then we drove out to let's see, I believe we went to California and drove out to California, and
Was Patty in that thing in the back seat, just in the casket laying there?
yeah, we have a picture of that somewhere.
Yeah, I remember seeing that picture. I don't know where it's at.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, Did I mention though that I went to Hawaii and first we stayed in on post there. They had a facility for dependents. You could stay there a while till you can get you a place to live.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we found that place there in Hawaii downtown on Pi'ikoi Street, and got it right there at the Punch Bowl. Across the street, the Punch Bowl, where all the military is buried there.
Wow.
So, right, it was easy to find.
Wow.
And but it was a good assignment. We would, go to the Big Island once a year. Right.
Mm.
Uh,
If I can return back to Patty for a moment. So she was born in 1957. What do you remember about those early years, and specifically about Patty? How did you all come up with her name?
Patricia is her name. I forgot how we came up with it, but we both decided on it somehow,
I remember Mom wanted to name her Wanda Sue.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I've been told. And you're like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Excuse me. So I don't know how Patricia was decided on, but I do know that Mom wanted Wanda Sue to begin with.
Now, Patricia Ann.
Right.
Oden.
Mm. What kind of baby was she like?
Oh, fine. I mean, she was I spent a lot of time with her. I think I got a video of her there on that little tricycle running around in the parking area there.
Yeah.
And,
And you and her in the little baby swimming pool and
oh yeah.
Well, that was the first time you became a father. What do you remember about that?
I remember I was crazy about her. Patty has my own little, yeah. But I spent a lot of time with her. I was always with her when I was at home. We always, naturally, we always.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beach, go to the beach and all that.
Sounds like you enjoyed being a father.
Oh yeah, yeah.
and then you and her on that little motorcycle.
Uh.
And she was like 3 or 4 waving. Of course, no helmets back then or nothing. Of course, just. But yeah, there's.
Yeah, that motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We moved into quarters on post, just off post there at Fort Hood, and she knew not to get in the streets. One thing, sure, no closer than this right here. So she was okay with that, and we missed her one day. One afternoon, we couldn't find her. Wondered where in the world could she be? And 2 houses down, the houses along the street, single story. 2 houses down, she was in that house. They were gone. They evidently left their back door open, but she was waiting for her little friend to get there. Yeah, that's why she was in there. We couldn't find her. She disappeared. I looked all around, and that's where she was. She's gone there to be with her little friend, and she was waiting for her to get home.
Wow.
But
Must have
anyway,
put you and your wife in a panic for a while.
oh yeah, we were.
Mm.
And I bought that little motorcycle, and she'd ride on it some with me.
Mm.
And of course, when Judy came along, she thought Judy was her own baby doll.
There's 4 years in age difference between them. So, yeah. Tell me about that. So, what do you remember about life when Judy did come along in 1961?
Well, my unit was at Fort Polk, Louisiana. We were supporting the National Guard. What we did, my unit, we was assigned to go down there and open up that post. Set it up so that the National Guard could come in and train, So we were down there, and I knew that it was you, and they didn't want to let me go back to Fort Hood. Somehow or another, they thought I had to be there. And anyway, finally, I got permission to go back to Fort Hood, And as I'm driving up, I can see the houses, and as I'm driving up, I see Murders, my wife, get out of a vehicle with Judy. She'd already, I was going to pick her up at the hospital and all that, but they'd already released her from the hospital, and she had to get I forgot whether it was a taxi or a friend or somebody, but she was getting out of the vehicle with Judy.
Wow. Surprise, huh? Wow.
Yeah, and then I got them all packed up and took them back to Fort Polk with me. I had got a house down there, rented a house down there,
And where was that?
Louisiana.
Louisiana?
Uh-huh.
So it's you, Murtis, Patty, and Judy
Yeah,
at this point.
yeah.
Yeah. How about that first year when Judy was born? What was going on with you and your family?
Well, the first year, we were at Fort Hood.
In Texas?
Yeah, Fort Hood, Texas. Well, anyway, I was in a tank battalion there, and we went back to Fort Hood from Louisiana when we finished our assignment there, and we stayed there. I forgot how old Judy was when we left there and went overseas. 63, took about 2 years old?
Yeah, see, James was born in Munich, so David was born in 64, January 64, so yeah, it had to be 63 or something.
Yeah.
What was it like for you when you held your second child, your daughter, Judy?
It was just a little doll. I was real proud of her. One thing too had happened when we were in Hawaii. This was before Judy was born. I was teaching a class one morning to the company, and I could see out the street, and I saw a car pull up, and it was my wife and my neighbors that lived in the apartment building with there. And so I went out, and my wife was really upset. Patty had burned herself with coffee. We lived in an apartment in Oahu, let's see, was it Oahu? No, we lived in an apartment just off the base at the time. We moved from Honolulu up there, and we lived upstairs in an apartment. And Murders and a couple of other women lived in the apartment. They were having coffee, and somehow or another, Patty had knocked over the cup on her arm here, and she's got scars now on that. But and so that had happened, and she was in the hospital, and they came to get me or notify me. So it so happened that I turned the class over to another NCO and went to the hospital, and she was all, burnt from that hot coffee.
They had to take grafts off her thigh, skin grafts off her thigh to put on her arm.
Yeah. She was that little, and they had to do that. Man, I imagine that was painful.
Scary for you as a father.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was kind of upset that they allowed that to happen, but cause what happened that Patty had climbed up in her seat when she got up to put the pot back or whatever. Patty had climbed up in her chair and turned that coffee over on her.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so anyway, the neighbor in that little tiny cul-de-sac that we lived in on Post, he was crazy about Patty. You could see her running around on that tricycle. Have you seen that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, and he was crazy about Patty. He had a little boy about 5 years old. And anyway, they were good friends, and they transferred back to California. We stopped off when we came back from overseas there. We stopped off, spent the night with them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got a video of somewhere of that, of her, Patty running around on that tricycle. Have you seen it, haven't you, Judy?
Yeah. When that little boy named George, or is that just the dad's name? I thought her little friend was George in Hawaii that she hung around with so much.
That one, that sergeant that got killed over there, Sergeant Guestford, he was he's the one, him and his wife and son as ones that we let move into the downstairs in there, in Hawaii. We were downstairs. Well, we was on a big island training in the tanks, and they got two big volcanoes, Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa, huge volcanoes of extent, and we have tank training between them, and so we're training one night, and he's parked on top up here, his tank. I'm over here, and they had to move back, and the driver didn't do it on purpose, but he turned a big dugout side of the mountain here, and he didn't stay far enough up here, and his right track went like that, and that tank turned bottoms up. And Guestford, when his tank commander in there, he was probably trying to get out, but it smashed him. That tank fell on him, a 50-ton tank. So he was between a 50-ton tank and a volcano. And I didn't know anything about it at the time, but next morning, after this happened, it was, I found out about it. So I was going to escort him back to Oahu, you know, Schofield Barracks, that back there. So I took his body and went down to the airport, down to Hilo, I guess, yeah. And I got a call. We had a helicopter there to get him. And I got a call that they had found part of his brain, you know. And it wanted me to hold up the helicopter there to get that part of his body. So that helicopter pilot didn't think that he could do that. I told him he could do it, you know, that we weren't moving until we waited for that. So they sent it down. So I took him on to Oahu to the hospital there on Oahu. And the doctor met us there, you know, he looked, he said, well, we know what he died from, don't we? And I said, yeah, we sure do. So his wife wanted me to escort him back to the States, so I escorted him back, his body back to the States. We flew back into California, and then I got a train, you know, got his body put on a train in a
Casket?
Yeah, in a casket. And so we took the northern route. And so we was at one of those places where we were transferring. These guys was going to run with the casket on, you know, on this roller thing. They were going to run with it, and I said, you're not going to run with him. He's going to go right along here, you know, normal. And then when we got there, his wife, one of them, I guess his mother or was gonna want to view him. He wanted to open the casket. And I got to his dad aside and said, look, don't open the casket. You know, because it didn't have no head. It was completely missing. So he they wanted to make sure it was him.
Yeah.
I said, I know it's him, you know. I know it's him. I checked myself. It's him. So anyway, I had taken the train from California all the way around up and down to Washington. And then after the funeral and everything, I took the train all the way down the East Coast here and got off in Mobile and went up to the house and stayed 2 days up there with my mom and them. And then they took me back to Mobile and I got on a train, and so I was gone 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I traveled around the whole United States on a train.
Wow.
Coming down the East Coast at night, I got up on top. They had this upstairs in the double-deck train car. And here I am up there watching the lights as we go by all the towns and everything. But that was a long trip, though, from here out there on the train.
Yeah. Sure. Moving on. So your next assignment was in Munich, and so this time you brought your wife with you, and now you have 2 children, Patty and Judy, and here you are in Munich. And then while you were in Munich, David was born.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about David.
Well, I wasn't home when David or James was born. I was on the border. Just happened, you know. And when David was born, I was on the border. What we did, we rotated on and off the border. We patrolled the Czechoslovakian border. My unit did.
And what year was this?
63 to 66.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we was on the border when David was born. And of course I got my Jeep and went back. But our next door, well, I guess you lived, yeah, next door was helping murders with the kids and everything. So I was able to come back and stay a few days and then go back to the border.
So being on the border, you would be there for like a month or 2 and then
Month.
come back home?
Yeah, a month. We'd spend a month on the border and come back for 2 months.
Okay, and so David was born while you were on the border.
Yeah.
You were able to get a Jeep and come home. Tell us about David. How did you come up with his name?
I have no idea. Some of his relatives was named David.
Uh-huh.
So, see, my dad's name was Watson David Bodie. So they gave me David's name, David. And I wasn't going to have David Jr., so I just got David Wayne. The Wayne, one of my nephews, his name Wayne. He was a good kid. So David Wayne. So, and then of course, when James came along, trying to think up how we came up with James. Like King James, no, James. But Nelson's my middle name. So James Nelson Bodie.
David got your first name. James got your middle name.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember about David when he came and so that first year with David? What do you remember about him?
He had it made. He had 2.
Yeah.
2 older sisters who treated him like a baby doll.
Yeah, 2 little moms.
Uh-huh.
And I tell you, Merce was lucky. She had Patty to help her with Judy and wanted to take care of her all the time. And then when David came along, there was Patty and Judy to take care of David. Then when James came along,
You had 3 people to take care of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when I got orders for Vietnam, I was transferred from Europe to Fort Riley, Kansas. They organized the 9th Infantry Division, reactivated it, so we came there, and of course we moved right into quarters because the base was closed at the time, and the 9th Infantry Division was forming there, so we got quarters immediately. We got quarters there on post, and so David, him and James, they left them. Well, one thing they did, wasn't they the ones that was taking the pots and pans and all out from in the
Oh, yeah.
cupboards And in the kitchen, they'd take all these pots and pans out from in the cupboard and do whatever. But David, I think he tried to drink some gasoline or something one time.
Yeah, that's when you were in Vietnam.
Yeah, when I was in Vietnam.
It was sitting out there in the garage and he tried to drink some of it.
Or David tried to drink Clorox. Yeah.
No.
So anyway, of course, when I came back from Vietnam, Judy and Patty was in school, and Murtis and David and James was across the street at a neighbor's house, and I thought I wasn't gonna make it. We were fogged in. I was in a light plane coming into Fort Riley, and I said, all this, and the pilot can't land the plane because of the fog in. But the fog cleared when we got lower. Anyway, so David and James and them Murders, they was across the street, but it was James that I think saw me first. And he came running across the street, little bit of thing, he came running across the street to me, you know. And then after that, I went to the school where Patty and Judy was and got them.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 5. But yeah, I saw them standing out there and we went running up, hugging them. I keep looking at him, touching him, and making sure he's real. And,
But we immediately though left there, and we're trying to think. We went from there, I guess, to Waynesboro, didn't we?
well, maybe for a visit, but we moved to Columbus after
Yeah.
Kansas.
Assigned to Fort Benning. In fact, they were trying to assign me somewhere else, and Murders got a hold of somebody and got my orders changed to Fort Benning. So, anyway, let's see, what did we do at Fort Benning then? I came back to the infantry school. Yeah. 68 or 69. Somewhere along there, I got sent to Hamburg, Germany.
At this time, all 4 children were already born, and
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
you know, so it was your entire family.
Yeah.
In Hamburg.
Yeah. We went there, and when we got off the train there in Hamburg, it was snowing, snow everywhere. This one sergeant met us. What they had had our quarters ready for us and some food up there and everything. And so we got on the train, I think, and went from the airport to Hamburg.
Yeah.
And so we lived upstairs in quarters right outside the base. The back, there was a gate between coming out of the military quarters, you know, the barracks and all. It's fenced, and then there was a gate there, and then there was quarters, 2- and 3-story buildings there, you know. And so we had the upstairs, I guess it's 2nd floor quarters, and I could look right out my window there and see the back gate and the barracks and all that stuff, you know. And I just walked right in to my building, you know, from my quarters. And um, they were all going to school there too, you know. And
What was it like raising a family in Germany?
it's no different to me than any other place.
Hmm.
They, had all the dependent kids there, and they had the school right there,
Mm.
and the only part, and cavalry units, that supports the border, patrols the border. That's their mission, to patrol the border. And you're up there a month, and then you're back for a couple of months.
Mm.
And of course, I didn't have to go. That's one that I could have gotten out of too, because the colonel said he could keep me here. And I went ahead. But I went over there, and of course, like I say, border count was right outside of. Was 50 miles from what was that large town north of Hamburg?
Is it Nuremberg or Frankfurt?
Frankfurt.
Frankfurt, okay.
Frankfurt, yeah. We was about 50 miles from Frankfurt.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, a couple of things that happened there. At Bednarski.
Oh, goodness.
I was the first sergeant of L Troop. And the only reason I took that assignment to overseas that time and didn't let that colonel go ahead and get me out of it was I was going over there as regimental operations sergeant. That's what's going to be there. And I said, okay, that's a good assignment. I'll take that. Well, the regimental operations sergeant decided to stay, go ahead and extend his tour. So then it became squadron operations sergeant. The squadron in cavalry is a battalion in infantry, same they call it squadron. So I was still operations sergeant. So, one that plans the training and all this kind of stuff.
Mm.
And that's good. I'll take that. And I got over there, and that was my job. I had that job there. And the building I was in, it was a long building, kind of long. Ford Muir across the street over there, the back side of that building. And my operations office was in one end here, and the squadron commander was at the other end. And the sergeant major was there, down in there. Anyway, here I am doing that job, and L Troop failed the IG inspection. I mean, they failed that inspection. And the sergeant major told me that, Dave, let's take a ride out to the airport. We had a helicopter unit too, see, and we had a helicopter. So I said, okay. So we get a Jeep and everything, riding there, and he said, Dave, L Troop failed the inspection, and we want you to go take over First Sergeant L Troop. I said, no way. No way am I going over there. So a couple days later here, the battalion squadron XO, a major, Dave, let's ride out to the airport. Okay, we're riding out to the airport. He said, look, L Troop failed that inspection and they're going to be re-inspected in 30 days. We need you to go over and take over as First Sergeant. I said, no way. And go back to the building. A few minutes later, Sergeant Major sent for me, or the Colonel Reed sent for me. I walked down to his office there and walked in. He said, "You're now first sergeant of L Troop." I said, "Thank you."
Feel promoted whether you wanted it or not.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
And they were finishing up their move to the border at that time. You were going for a month. So I went over and took over L Troop. And anyway, they didn't know what I was about. They, the brass on the uniforms, I inspected with a
Oh.
with a ruler. Hey, in 30 days, I guarantee you, what the morning report is what all of them failed on. The duty roster. The duty roster is the thing that they'd always fail the IG inspection on the duty roster. And anyway, I went over and, like I say, I was really particular, even right down to, and we passed it with flying colors. But one afternoon, Sergeant Major McQuarrie came over and told me that he wanted me to give the 2nd Army senior NCOs a class on the duty roster. And I said, why should I give all of them a class on a duty roster? The little FM1 duty roster is about that thick. And anybody should be able to prepare duty rosters. But they always failed on the duty roster. And I always passed on it, see? So I had 2 days to prepare an hour class where I got all the senior NCOs of the unit and, senior officers and all, in Nuremberg. So I get my training aids and all ready to go and go up there and give that class to all of them. And anyway, I got commended on that, to get up there, and the commanders, there was 2 and 3. There's 2 and 3 star. I think there was 1 3-star general, 2 or 3 2-star generals, and colonels, and about 200 senior NCOs in that huge building thing there. And here I am, going to give them a class on the duty roster. But anyway, and I didn't have a lot of time, but I had done stuff like that before. And anyway, I got commended on that, on the duty roster. Given that class on the duty roster. But that's not easy to get up in front of all those people, senior people like that, and give a class.
No, especially from a farm boy from Waynesboro.
Yeah,
Now you're talking to 2 and 3-star generals and senior NCOs.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Very impressive.
It was, but see, they thought I could do everything, which I couldn't do everything.
Apparently, they had a lot of confidence in you to do a lot of
Yeah.
things. Yeah. I'd like to switch gears for a moment. When you think of your family, what are some of the happiest memories you have? You and your family.
Yeah, well, our vacations were happy ones. We had a tent we took with us, didn't we?
Right, yeah.
And had this what kind of vehicle?
Station wagon.
Yeah, it had a big station wagon and had the tent, and we traveled down there to Spain and all around, and then stopped off in Birch's Garden.
Mm-hmm, it was.
In Birch's Garden. Oh, well, we had a lot of good times. I mean,
Yeah.
Hmm.
the only thing I hated about was being gone a month at a time. You know, I've dreaded those times, but other than that, everything was fine. I was happy. I think the best time though we had was when we was here at Fort Benning, and with the boat.
Right, yeah,
That-
it's after, like, you retired and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some good times, good times.
What was it about that was so happy?
Well, just having the family together, and we just enjoyed the skiing and
Mm.
and everything.
Mhm.
Picnicking, you know, and we'd always take picnic lunch, whatever, with us. And out here in this lake, there's a tiny little island, it's about big as this house, I guess. That we dock out there and, you know, swim and
Hmm.
everything.
Mhm.
And most of that's but like I say, everything was so normal.
Mhm.
Didn't really have any bad times. You remember any bad times?
No,
Mm.
no.
Of course, the worst part was having to move here and there, but that didn't happen that often.
Seems like it might have been about every 3 years
Yeah.
or so.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And of course, when they organized the Sergeant Major's Academy, now supposedly they took the top 100, 100 to go to that school. And of course, I was sent from Germany to there, and so I was there at the school, and then I found out that I'd leave here. I had to go back to go to Korea, and I had time in to retire then already, so I just resigned,
Mm.
and then we moved on back to our house here in Columbus. And I got a job with a finance company. And let's see, I was with that finance company when I bought that store.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I was with the finance company. Then I opened that store, Dave's Grocery, called it.
yeah.
I got a picture there of that, where her and her friend is standing out there in front of it.
Fourth grade or something, right?
That's 7th grade.
Mm.
Yeah.
And anyway,
Love to play with the worms.
Mm.
but see, when I came back here, I went to the employment office and put in for a job. Yeah. Well, but I went to work with the finance company, and then got the store and everything, and then Murders would take care of the store during the day, and then as I got off work, I'd come in there, but that got kind of hectic and everything. But anyway, I got a notice from the employment office. About a year and a half I'd been with that finance company. I got a notice from the employment office that they was taking applications for district manager for finance, security company down here, the manager. So I went to Birmingham. The owner, Mr. McCurley in Birmingham, where the headquarters for that security engineers was. He operated in the southern 5 states. And I went up there for an interview. And after him and I talked for a few minutes, he said, "Oh, by the way, you've been on the payroll since Monday." That was Wednesday. And yeah.
Nice.
So anyway, I came back and started, learning. The manager was leaving pretty soon. Very soon, sooner than he thought.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, I went around to all the facilities where we provided security, hospitals and factories and everything, And it was in Alabama and Georgia. And so I went around to all of them, and I was wondering how in the world these guards knew what to do at those facilities. Because there was nothing there that told them what to do. And also, in the files in the office, there was no files on anybody hardly. There was like an application in there, but there was no record of how it was checked out or background checks or nothing like that. And then there was no lesson plans or nothing to teach the 8 hours of classroom instructions that you have to give by law. And the firing range was closed. The guy that was called the training NCO, he said they'd go out there and they'd shoot at a couple of logs somewhere, And I went around and prepared instructions for every facility, by diagrams for the checkpoints where the key stations were they had to check and all that. So I prepared that. I prepared run background checks on everybody, got their files together, had proof of training, they said the sheriff over here had closed down the firing range. So I went over to the sheriff's office down here in Phoenix City and told him that I was opening up I'm managing security engineers and I'm opening up the firing range. And he said that they said the reason they closed it is there was houses that was afraid of the firing going on. But I'd already gone out there, and I took David and James with me to do it, help me, and realigned the line of fire, improved the bank in front, and everything got the targets and all squared away, and there was no way that they could fire down to somebody's house over there and everything. So I just told him what I'd done, and we were opening up, and we did. Oh, that'll be a kid running over there. And so I did that to every job. And I made lesson plans for the training NCO, the instructor, to go by, and had all the records and got all that done. And Georgia, they started an inspection of it was a law that what you had to do, And there was 2 inspectors came down and to inspect, and I'd had all that completed by then, see. So they inspected, and I showed them this and that, and they used that as a outline on how they were going to inspect, what they were going to look for. And I refired the people that was on armed with weapons on post. I refired them on the firing range. It cost a little bit of money to get all that squared away. But I did all that, and then I required everybody that we trained, a background check to be run on them, get a police check and everything. And they had all the files, prepared. So their folder was complete. It had their pictures, they had the application with the record of references we've checked. It had the police report in there where it shows that they're not criminals. And then it had a training record there on where they had been trained on all these subjects. And so they're wondering, I run it like a military. and I had to, I organized it. I had ranks, like military ranks in there,
Your military experience came in very handy.
Yeah.
You came into a very sloppy situation and made it very organized.
Yeah, I run it like a military organization, and Mr. McCurley, the owner, he was very pleased.
Sure. Yeah.
And the thing about it too, after I'd been there a while, he mentioned me transferring to Birmingham. And I said, no, I'm not going to transfer nowhere. So, down the road a ways, he was talking with me, and he said, I still want you to transfer up here. And I said, look, you've got a president, 3 vice presidents. What am I going to be doing? He said, you'll be senior vice president. And I said, I just don't think I care for it. And he acted like he was desperate, in his tone of his voice. I said, okay, I was divorced then. I said, okay. So I moved up there, and after I was there a while, he fired the president and promoted me. And there's 3 vice presidents that's been there a while. And he told them that they don't, if they forget about me and my company down here, when I was down here, he wouldn't let them interfere or even, because I've had growth and profit. Every year I had the most growth and most profit. And so they couldn't tell me anything. And then he promoted me to president over them.
Goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I stayed up there a while, and then I decided to retire. I was going to hang everything up and just relax. And so he said, look, how about going back to Columbus for a little while? Because Columbus had kind of dropped off a little bit. And he said, how about going back to Columbus for a little while? And finally I decided, well, that's fine. Everything is here. I'll come back here. I came back here and stayed 7 years.
Yeah.
Where do you consider home? You've
Well-
moved around quite a bit, so if someone says, where's your home, what would you say?
Well, my home actually, where I grew up, was in Waynesboro, Mississippi. So I'm from Mississippi. Of course, like I say, I've lived all over, everywhere.
And you seem to return to Columbus by choice.
Well, yeah, because that was where there was more things I could get to do here.
Okay.
Waynesboro, just a small town. There's nothing, Fort Benning's right here is one of the reasons too. Fort Benning is right here.
Hmm.
And
So you saw more opportunity here
yeah,
where you can, yeah, okay. Like to turn corner a little bit, and you've got 3 children. What advice do you have for your children? Let's start with Patty, the oldest. What advice would you have for Patty?
I think they have to give me advice.
Mhm. They clearly love you and want to do anything they can to help out. You've known them longer than anybody's known them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got the perspective of and wisdom of age.
Now, I always believe in taking care of your responsibilities, you know, and doing being a good person and do a good job and be responsible, you know. So do the best you can do. Anything less is you're not, you know, it's not the way it should be.
And on the subject, maybe we can kind of end on this note. You also have grandchildren and great grandchildren.
Oh,
Not thinking about any individuals, but in general, what advice would you give to that generation, to your grandchildren?
well, they need to get a good education, one thing, and be honest and everything, trustworthy, and do the best they can in everything that they try to do, you know. I mean, I always wanted to do a little better job than anybody else, you know.
Sounds like that started at an early age where you wanted to prove to your father, I can handle the task.
Yeah, yeah. That was, he got me started right.
Mm.
I didn't give him any trouble either. In fact, now supposedly he has never used foul language. He's never cussed. My dad, he didn't do that. I tell you, I remember when some neighbors, you know, these big wells, they're shallow, big like this, that they draw water out of. A neighbor of ours in the country, this is when I was real small. A neighbor of ours in the country there had a well like that. And their cat fell in it. And their son was too big to do it. And they asked me if they could lower me into that well and get that cat. And I did. They lowered me in there and I got that cat.
Mm.
There's all kinds of things happening right now. The gypsies, you know, we were scared of them. Gypsies. And at one place we lived, they had passed through and stolen some pigs from people and left her and killed them and all that. And, left the hair and the whatever out there. And we were afraid of gypsies back in those days. And one place we lived, me and Betty was in the at the barn, and this car pulls up out front. It's in the country. The car pulls up and stops, and they said, "Let's get them," something like that. And I tell Betty and us, "Let's run," and we ran the backside and went back to the house over here. But they were going to capture us. I don't know what they were done with it.
Yeah, I've heard about that too, how the gypsies still kids. I thought that was a myth.
Yeah.
And I would have thought in Mississippi,
Right.
I would have thought in bigger towns, but huh. Yeah, you haven't talked much about your mom. Tell us about your mom.
Well, my mom was, when she was a young woman, they gave her some kind of medicine that just destroyed her nerves. So her hands shook all the time. So she had to be taken care of. She couldn't even eat by herself.
Hmm.
And so, of course, she, after my dad died and everything, and Mary and Betty, they married, whatever. And I had my grandmom and my mom living with me. My grandmom took care of her, did what she couldn't do, you know.
Hmm.
And so I forgot what they said that medicine was they gave her that it just destroyed her nerves some way or another. I don't know what it was.
Hmm.
But she had to be helped, you know.
Hmm. And she was like that as you were a child growing up.
Yeah, and she was living with my youngest sister, Betty, there out in the country in Waynesboro. She was living with her, and then her health got bad, and I was overseas, but her health got bad, and she had to be put in a assisted living or a nursing home, whatever,
Mhm.
and that's where she died. I was in Germany at the time, and I was on the border, and I got a message up there about somebody, you know, their mother had died or something like that.
Mm.
And I looked for, had all them, almost 200 people there on that border facility, you know. And I had records of everybody that was attached to us and all. And the person's name that they gave me wasn't up there. So I notified them back in Munich. I said, we don't have anybody up here by that name. He said, how about checking it again? So they checked it, and it was me that they wanted. My mom had died. So I got a Jeep driver, and went back to Munich, and then got ready and got on the airplane and headed for Mississippi for the funeral.
Hmm.
Yeah. But me looking for some guy, and who in the world is this guy?
Hmm.
It turned out it was me.
Wow.
Me they was looking for.
Hmm.
But she didn't have a good life. Well, we took care of her, you know. She was taking care of her family.
I only have this couple of pictures of me with her.
Yeah.
And Kathy and Debbie were in some of the pictures. Two, I guess. So I don't really remember. I just remember the pictures.
How about the last question for today? If you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
You know, I've thought about that. I don't know how it had to be an accident that I accomplished the different things that I did, you know. Because I always had to do the best job I figured anybody could do in that particular, and I got that from my dad, I think, you know. So I don't know. Everything I've done has led to something better, you know. Seems like.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I don't know if, trying to think of something that I would change, you know. I can't really think of anything.
Sounds like you've accomplished a lot for a farm boy from Waynesboro, Mississippi.
Yeah. I'm well pleased with that.
Well,
Things should have been different if I just took a different route, you know.
hmm,
So,
hmm.
and of course, my attitude has been that you have to do better than everybody else and do the job you're doing better than anybody else.
That's worked well for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every job's important to me, so that's the way I figured it was important to do it right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and just appreciate this time together.
Well, a lot of things I just couldn't remember, you know.
You did well.
Uh,
You did well, and we'll have other opportunities too.
Yeah.
Thank you.